You already paid for that garden bed. The soil, the compost, the labor of building it. And right now, half of it is sitting empty, growing nothing but weeds, while you buy the exact same vegetables at the store for $3 a bunch. That bare dirt in July isn't resting. It's wasting money. The season you think is over is actually a free second crop waiting to happen, and some of these vegetables are ready to eat in about a month. Here are the ones you can still plant in summer for a fast harvest before the frost shuts you down. So how does one gardener pull 2 full harvests out of a single bed in one season, while the bed next door sits bare from June till frost? It comes down to one number most people never bother to learn: the days between seed and supper. Every seed packet prints it right on the back, the days to maturity, and once you start reading that number, you can do a little math that changes everything. You find your average first frost date, you count backward by the days to maturity, you add a week or two of cushion, because plants grow slower as the light fades in fall. And that tells you the last day you can sow and still get a crop. For most of the country, sitting in zones 3 through 9, the middle of summer leaves you plenty of runway. The University of Minnesota Extension lays this out plainly in their guide on planting vegetables in midsummer for a fall harvest. The garden isn't done in July, it's barely halfway through. So let's walk through the 11 crops I would put in that empty ground right now, fastest to slowest, with the timing that makes each one work. Number 11, radishes. If you have ever doubted that summer planting works, grow a row of radishes and let them prove it to you. Radishes are the sprinter of the vegetable world, going from seed to harvest in about 30 days, sometimes less in warm soil. That speed is the whole point. You can sow a short row today, sow another short row 2 weeks from now, and another 2 weeks after that, and you will have crisp radishes coming out of that bed steadily right up until the ground freezes. Gardeners call that succession planting, and radishes are the easiest place to learn it, because the turnaround is so fast you see the payoff almost immediately. The one tip that matters in summer heat is to keep the soil consistently moist, because radishes that dry out turn woody and sharp. A light board or a bit of shade cloth over the row until the seeds sprout keeps the surface cool and damp. The money math is simple and a little funny. A bunch of radishes at the store runs $1 or $2 for maybe 8 roots. A single seed packet costs about the same and holds a couple hundred seeds, which is months of radishes from one cheap envelope, grown in a strip of dirt that was doing nothing for you anyway. Number 10, arugula. Arugula is the green that makes you wonder why you ever paid $5 or $6 for a tiny plastic clamshell of it. Like radishes, it races to a cuttable size in roughly 30 days, and it actually prefers the cooling weather of late summer and fall over the brutal heat of June. That makes it a perfect crop to start now and harvest as the season turns. The trick with arugula in warm weather is that it wants to bolt, meaning it shoots up a flower stalk and turns bitter the moment it gets too hot and dry. So you give it a spot that catches afternoon shade. You keep it watered, and you harvest it young by snipping the outer leaves with scissors. Cut it that way, and the plant keeps pushing out new leaves for weeks instead of giving up after one picking. That cut-and-come-again habit is where the savings live. One short row started in midsummer can replace every one of those overpriced clamshells from now until hard frost, and arugula is hardy enough to shrug off the first light frosts that would flatten a tomato. The Roots and Refuge Guide on what to plant in July puts fast greens like this near the top of the list for exactly that reason. Number 9. Bok choy. Bok choy is one of the most underused crops for a fall garden, and it is a shame because it is fast, it is forgiving, and it loves the conditions that summer planting hands it. Most varieties are ready in about 45 days, and the smaller baby types come even quicker. Sown in the heat of mid to late summer, bok choy matures right into the cool, damp weather of autumn that it genuinely prefers, which means better flavor and far less of the bolting that plagues it in spring. Give it steady moisture and a little afternoon shade while the weather is still hot, and it rewards you with thick, juicy stalks and tender leaves. Here is a tip worth knowing. You do not have to wait for full heads. You can harvest bok choy at any stage, snipping individual outer leaves for stir-fries, or pulling whole young plants when you thin the row to give the others space. That means food on the table within weeks, not months. At the grocery store, a couple of small heads of bok choy can run you several dollars, and they are often tired and yellowing by the time they reach the produce case. Yours come out of the garden crisp and fresh, off a bed that would otherwise be sprouting crabgrass. Number 8. Beets. Beets are the crop that gives you 2 harvests from one planting, which makes them a genuine bargain in an empty summer bed. They mature in around 55 days, fast enough to count back from frost almost anywhere in zones 3 through 9 and still get a full root. And while you are waiting on the roots, the tops are food too. Beet greens are tender, nutritious, and delicious sautéed or thrown into a soup, and you can thin the row by pulling young plants and eating the leaves whole, which gives the remaining beets room to swell. So one packet of beet seed feeds you greens in a few weeks and roots a few weeks after that. In summer, the key is keeping the soil evenly moist so the roots stay tender and do not get woody, and beets actually take a touch of fall frost just fine, with a light cold snap making them a little sweeter. A bunch of beets with the greens still attached can cost $3 or more at the store, and the greens are usually wilted. Grown at home from a midsummer sowing, you get both halves of the plant at peak freshness, and you get them off ground that was costing you in weeds and giving you nothing back. Number 7. Turnips. Turnips have an old-fashioned reputation, but a well-grown fall turnip is sweet, mild, and nothing like the bitter ones people remember. They are a classic fall crop for good reason. They grow quickly, many varieties sizing up in 50 to 60 days, and they sweeten noticeably after a touch of frost, so a midsummer sowing times the harvest perfectly for the first cold nights of autumn. Like beets, turnips are 2 foods in 1. The greens are a southern staple, cooked down tender and rich, and you can pick them while the roots are still growing. The tip that makes turnips nearly foolproof is to sow them directly where they will grow, since root crops resent being transplanted, and to keep the bed watered through the warm end of summer so germination is even. They handle the cooling weather of fall beautifully and store well in the ground for weeks once mature. The budget angle is hard to beat. Because turnip seed is cheap, the plants are productive, and you walk away with both a hearty root vegetable for roasting in stews and a pot of cooked greens, all from a single inexpensive packet sewn into a bed that was sitting idle. Number 6. Bush beans. A lot of gardeners assume beans are a one-shot spring crop, but a second sowing of bush beans in early summer is one of the smartest moves you can make. Bush beans mature in about 60 days, and unlike the pole types that climb all season, the bush varieties produce a concentrated flush of pods over a couple of weeks, which is exactly what you want when you are racing the frost. Sow them in late June or early July, count your 60 days plus a cushion against your first frost date, and you will be picking fresh green beans in early fall when your spring planting is long finished and tired. Beans love the warm soil of summer, so germination is fast and strong this time of year. The Joe Gardener podcast on fall succession planting tips talks through this kind of staggered sowing, putting in a fresh round of a crop as the first one winds down so the harvest never stops. The savings here are real money, because fresh green beans run a few dollars a pound at the store, and a single row of bush beans can hand you pounds of them. One caution worth remembering is that beans are frost tender, so they need to finish before the first hard freeze, which is exactly why you do the count-back math before you sow. If you are getting ideas for that empty stretch of your own garden, do me a favor and subscribe. This channel puts out budget gardening and grow your own food guides like this every week, and there is plenty more coming on getting the most out of every season and every square foot of dirt you already paid for. Number 5. Carrots. Carrots take a little patience, but a fall carrot is worth the wait, and midsummer is the perfect time to start one. They run around 70 days to maturity, so you do need to count back carefully from your first frost and give yourself a cushion, but in most of zones 3 through 9, a July sowing lands the harvest right in the cool weeks of fall. And that timing is a gift, because carrots, like beets and turnips, get sweeter after frost. The cold tells the plant to convert its starches to sugars, so the carrots you pull in late fall taste better than anything you grew in the heat of summer. The challenge with summer-sown carrots is germination. Because the seed is small, it must stay near the surface, and that surface dries out fast in July sun. The fix is to keep the seedbed constantly damp until the seedlings appear, and many gardeners lay a board or a strip of burlap over the row to hold moisture, lifting it the moment the green shows. The Underwood Garden's Guide on Succession Planting walks through this kind of timing and spacing in detail. As for money, a bunch of carrots is a couple of dollars, but homegrown carrots pulled sweet from cold fall soil are in a different league entirely, and they store right in the ground for weeks. Number 4. Spinach. Spinach is a cool weather plant through and through, which is precisely why a late summer sowing works so much better than people expect. It struggles and bolts in the heat of spring and early summer, but sown as the worst of the heat begins to break. In late summer toward early fall, it settles into the cooling weather it loves and produces tender, dark leaves for weeks. Many types are ready to start cutting in around 40 days, and you harvest it the same generous way as the other greens, snipping outer leaves and letting the center keep growing. What makes spinach especially valuable for a fall garden is its toughness against cold. It laughs off light frost that would end most crops, and with a little protection it can keep feeding you deep into the cold season. To get it going while summer is still warm, give the seeds a shaded, moist spot because spinach seed sprouts poorly in hot soil. The money payoff is obvious to anyone who buys those bags of baby spinach that seem to dissolve into slime 3 days after you open them. A row of your own started now gives you fresh leaves on demand right through fall, off a bed that was producing nothing but weeds in the heat. Number 3. Kale. Kale might be the most rewarding crop on this entire list for a fall garden, because cold weather does not just spare it, cold weather improves it. A frost turns kale sweeter and more tender, washing out the slight bitterness it can carry in summer. So the leaves you pick after the first cold snaps are the best the plant will ever give you. Sown in midsummer, kale has time to grow into a sturdy, productive plant before the cold arrives, and then it keeps standing and producing long after tender crops are finished, often straight through hard frosts and into winter in much of the country. You harvest it leaf by leaf from the bottom up, taking the lower leaves and letting the plant keep growing taller and making more from the top, which means a few plants feed you for months. Give it steady water while it is establishing in the summer heat, and it asks for very little after that. On cost, bagged or bunched kale runs a few dollars and goes limp quickly in the fridge, while a handful of plants started in summer can supply your kitchen all autumn and beyond, making it one of the best returns you can get from an idle bed. Number 2. Swiss chard. Swiss chard is the workhorse green that keeps on giving, and a summer sowing sets you up for a harvest that can run from early fall right up to a hard freeze. Chard is a relative of the beet, grown for its lush leaves and thick, colorful stems, and it handles both summer heat and fall cold better than almost any other leafy green, which makes the midsummer planting window forgiving. You begin cutting outer leaves once the plant is established, and it simply keeps producing new ones from the center for weeks on end, so a single planting becomes a steady supply rather than a one-time pick. That cut-and-come-again generosity is the heart of its value. Give it consistent moisture and it grows fast and lush, and the bright stems in red, gold, and pink make it one of the prettier things in the garden too. At the store, a bunch of chard runs a few dollars and it wilts fast, but a short row of your own keeps handing you tender leaves and stems straight through the cooling weeks of fall, all from ground that would otherwise be sitting empty and unproductive after your spring crops gave out. Number 1. Leaf lettuce. I am ending with leaf lettuce because it brings the whole idea full circle. Lettuce is a cool season crop that despises summer heat, bolting and turning bitter the moment it gets too hot, which is exactly why you do not sow it in the dead of summer, but rather as the heat starts to fade, in late summer heading into fall. Timed that way, the loose leaf types are ready to start cutting in around 45 to 50 days, and they thrive in the mild, cool weather of autumn that makes them sweet and crisp. The smart move is to sow a little every couple of weeks, that same succession habit, so you are never without a salad, and never overwhelmed by more than you can eat. Harvest it cut and come again, taking outer leaves and leaving the center, and one sowing stretches a long way. To get it started while the tail of summer is still warm, give it afternoon shade and steady moisture, because lettuce seed will not sprout well in hot soil. The savings close the loop on where we started. Because those clamshells and bagged salads are some of the most expensive, fastest spoiling things in the store, and a few feet of leaf lettuce grown in your reclaimed bed replaces all of it with fresh leaves cut minutes before dinner. So look at that empty bed again. That bare dirt was never the end of your season. It was the start of a second one, and counting back from your frost date is the only skill standing between you and a free fall harvest off ground you already paid to build. If this gave you a plan for the rest of your summer, there are plenty more guides like it on the channel for growing more food and spending less to do it.